This one's even shorter. So this one, right up your alley, tower safety. Grounding and lightning safety and some emergency operations. So according to them, when you're installing or working on a tower, uh, you have to wear appropriate safety gear. Uh, I don't know is there a standard that you have to meet on climbing harness? Or do you just get it off Amazon?
If it's certified, then you're good to go.
So appropriate would mean certified by somebody, right?
If you make your own, they're frowned on.
Okay. If there's any power on the antenna, you're supposed to make sure that it's locked out and tagged on the tower. I guess we don't normally have power on our towers, do we?
You know,
I would think, some of the ones that are high enough, they have to have a light on the top.
that's only 200 feet.
Right.
What's a rotator voltage between? Wouldn't that be the only electrical power? I think you're beam, if you have a beam rotator, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's low power.
yeah,
Yeah, it's usually lower voltage, isn't it?
usually.
But they don't really give a level. It's
No.
That's why I'm wondering. It might.
But normally the towers are not energized. So,
Right.
you know, hot.
But if they are,
Normally.
make sure that,
Or
or,
do what I used to do is jump on the tower.
okay, so you're not in contact with ground and the tower?
5 hours, then jump on.
Okay,
I can say that now, if I said that back then, it done.
you have to have at least one ground crew.
If it's your wife, she's
Yeah.
not gonna let you climb it.
Even if they're not qualified as had training, you need somebody there to call 911.
I'm here to call 911. It's up.
If it's crank up tower, you need to ensure that the locks are in place before you try to climb it. You have to have proper training, which means you've passed some kind of certification course, like Clyde's, I guess.
Yeah.
They talk about this 100% tie off where you need to have a lanyard, at least one, attached to the tower at all times above your head to a tower leg. I'm sure you do that, Ed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it slows down your fall.
And it wouldn't be so bad if they didn't have those weird latching hooks on the end of the.
Carabiners?
I guess you could call it a carabiner, but you have to push in on the bottom and then squeeze the top to get the jaw to open up. They lock closed,
Oh, okay.
and for that safety reason. But if it was just a deep hook, then you could hang it up there and keep going. You gotta squeeze and push and turn and, very.
Okay. Same kind of thing mountain climbers use.
Probably something similar to it. But a lot of those are actual hooks that they
Yeah.
put into the rocks or pound into the rocks. They don't latch.
Yeah, those are the carabiners because it's got a little spring-loaded thing so you can hook it on and it closes.
Yeah, so it won't come off.
Right. So what is meant by 100% tie off regarding tower safety? To what should lanyards be attached while climbing?
Our legs.
Where should a shock absorbing lanyard be attached to a tower when working above ground? That's so you can do the,
Excellent.
uh,
That would be good.
which of these choices should be observed when climbing a tower using a safety harness? I would, I would have thought holding on to the tower was a good idea.
For when it should be included somewhere, but they never talk about
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that's.
Right.
it. I mean, if you watch professional climbers, their
Oh, yeah.
tools have little lanyards on.
yeah. Out at the Space Center, you have to have tethers on tools working
Yeah.
up on, even in the VAB up in the high
That's
levels. What should be done by any person preparing to climb a tower that supports electrically powered devices?
Grab the base.
Yeah, or jump on.
Up on.
all about.
Proper grounding on the tower is important. You never solder ground wires that are subject to lightning discharge. Solder has a way of evaporating at relatively low. So you need a mechanical connection. Now, I guess it'd be all right if you got a good mechanical connection to also solder it. But it won't do
It heats
anything.
up so much from the current in the
Right.
lightning that the solder is
Right.
kind of useless at that time, you know.
Need to make sure that all the legs of the tower are grounded and bonded together. And you're also supposed to have a ground rod close to each leg. I don't know if everybody does that, but that's one of the. Supposed to put a ground rod at each leg, tie each leg to it and bond them all together, and then tie that into your system ground.
The ground rods are supposed to be a minimum of 6 feet apart if they're 8 foot ground rods.
Well, part of that, it depends on a couple factors, the soil, the length of the rod, and they normally do the spacing. You know, doesn't exactly radiate, but the ground pattern from the rod spreads out a certain distance from it. So if you have them closer together, you're not gaining anything. So normally 6 or 8 feet apart for a normal ground rod is as close as you can get them. If you're doing more than that, then you're just buying extra ground rods. If they're farther apart, you're not getting as much connection to earth ground as you could.
If they're closer together, they effectively make one big ground rod instead of
Right.
3.
But I think the exception there is with the tower, because you're supposed to have it right at the tower legs, as close as you can get it. Of course, there's usually a big hunk of concrete there, so. If it's a freestanding tower.
Well, I've seen that annual food copper strip. Yeah.
What's the primary function of an external earth connection or ground rod? Get rid of that bad stuff. Why should solder joints not be used in lightning protection ground connections? Oh, I thought it was the flux.
The flux, that's.
Flux capacity.
Yeah.
Which of the following is required for lightning protection ground rods?
No.
Didn't they ever think that? Because I remember kind of growing up, you're supposed to put ground rods on the water pipe and the gas pipe.
Yeah, they're all
Yeah.
That
little plastic pipe.
well, not only that, but it seemed like I can understand the water pipe, but the gas line have a lightning discharge come through might be a problem.
Meters down this.
There's a problem with electrolysis.
Oh.
Okay. Which of the following is required for lightning protection ground rods?
Delta Leagues,
Probably.
I feel like
Installing lightning arresters on the feed lines. Most of those are just a gas discharge tube that goes off it. The cheap ones you buy from Amazon are like 90 volts. So I don't believe they'll handle 1500 watts because you're going to exceed that voltage. Because you're up at 70 volts just for 100 watts. I guess it's a question of exactly where they should be located. They always said, you should put them on the ground panel, coming into the shack on the outside. My personal thing is to put them closer to the ground rod that's tied to outside. I don't want it right outside the window. But to get it into the ground as soon as possible. But the main thing is make sure it's outside the building. Where should lightning arresters be located? Yeah, that's the one I don't like.
Yeah, that's how it lands.
At the closest power pole.
The lightning arrestor himself, yeah. That's your neighbor, so I kind of.
Yeah.
They're sort of close enough to be out of breath. Well.
Where should the station's lightning protection ground system be located?
Outside the building.
Yeah. See, that was a general question. The other, I think, was an extra question. The same thing, two different. For shack wiring, you need to follow the National Electric Code. Basically, use appropriate size wire. So you use 12 gauge wire if it's a 20 amp circuit, 14 gauge wire if it's a 15 amp circuit. Which of the following is covered by the National Electrical Code? The appropriate sizes, I just mentioned 20 amp for 12 is 12 gauge and 15 is 14 gauge. That's pretty much been a standard for a long time in house wiring. According to the National Electric Code, what's the minimum wire size may be used safely for wiring with a 20 amp circuit breaker? Which size of fuse or circuit breaker would be appropriate to use with a circuit using 14 gauge wire? You should use GFCIs when there's basically water around in like laundry rooms, kitchens, things like that. And I always thought the way they operated was look for a difference in the current.
Yeah, I guess between the neutral and hot. A lot of times I use the
But
GFCI.
essentially they're supposed to, you know, trip the, well, it has a breaker in it, trip the breaker when it detects that there's current going to ground. Which of the following conditions will cause a ground fault circuit interrupter to disconnect AC power?
These things don't last forever.
No, lightning will fry and that's everything. After lightning storm, all of a sudden it's just dead. You know, they gotta replace it.
In some cases, you'll need 240 volt circuit, a lot of power amplifiers, 1500 watts. It's a little bit of a push to run them on 120 volts.
Current,
Yep,
big wire.
probably 20 amps. If you do 240 volt wiring, it's probably another chart coming up. You need to use all 4 wires. So normally you have a red and a black, which are hot lines, and then the neutral, which is white or off-white, and then the green safety ground. Safety ground.
Well, I think it's-
Green is safety ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always.
It's tied to earth ground line.
Yeah,
Outside of the regular line.
Yeah, but it's called a fault ground, I guess so much.
Yeah. Technically it's the safety ground. That's what it's for. In case you have a short from a hot line to the case where you used to have metal stuff. The safety ground is supposed to bring that current back to the service entrance as shown on this chart. It's just there for that purpose. It's not a system ground. And normally it's not even 14 gauge wire.
It's usually a little bit smaller.
Yeah,
Right.
the older one.
Just to
Because
save money.
it's just there for that safety purpose.
I think now it has to be the same, the older one is smaller, but now it's.
Oh,
Yeah, and I know on the older ones, the ground wire at your service entrance is maybe 14 gauge at most. They don't put a big ground wire in there.
I mean, to the right.
Yeah.
Is 6 gauge.
Little skinny.
The old-
Little skinny green wire.
Yeah, the old, it depends on the age of your house.
They're not worried about getting rid of lightning.
Well, I guess the thinking was if it shorts the breaker long before that wire gets any hot. Boom, go. But I guess they don't do that.
And this is just showing that your hot lines are going to either fuses or circuit breakers.
Correct.
I don't know anybody has fuses anymore.
I mean,
When I grew up, we did,
yeah.
but we never put pennies in them.
well, that's for high current.
Yes.
When you want to try it.
Which wire or wires in a 4-conductor 240 volt AC circuit should be attached to fuses or circuit breakers?
I don't know.
Kind of a problem when you attach the ground wire. Equipment interlocks, particularly on things like power amplifiers or tube transmitters where you've got fairly high voltages. You should have some kind of interlock so when you open the cabinet, whether it's got a door or take the lid off or whatever, it disconnects power.
And television.
What is the purpose of a power supply interlock?
Charlie.
For emergency operation, whether you have batteries or a generator. You should disconnect your utility line before turning on the generator. Most of these ones you get, with a transfer switch is a break before make.
Yep. I got one of those in my house.
Your generator should be outside in a well-ventilated area. Not recommended to put it in the laundry room or the garage. Especially not the garage.
People do that.
Fucking dog.
It's raining.
Yeah, it's raining. Say they have fun.
Which of the following is true of an emergency generator installation?
Awful.
Hey,
Oh, yeah, that's true, because you have to,
They gotta get ready.
you gotta get that fuel in there when, before it runs out.
I couldn't do that all the time.
We're supposed to put your generator in your neighbor's.
Yeah.
Or they just hook it.
Or just use his, don't use the neighbor's generator.
Mine worked fine until the last hurricane. And I went out and started it in the morning. Because I didn't want to run it all day. Worked fine. Went back out a little later. That damn thing wouldn't start. Haven't started since.
Carburetor.
Could be, yeah, well, that's why I think I had in mind, but
The other hazard is lead. If you're doing any soldering, then you're actually handling the solder. Unless you're using this new crap called lead free.
That's all.
You should definitely wash your hands before you eat. Because you can get enough lead transfer that.
That's not necessarily true.
What's that?
As you're messing around with food, that wipes off the lead off their hands.
Onto the food.
Well, yeah, so you don't have to wash them, it'll
That's true.
rub off on the-
As long as you don't eat the food.
Well,
serve it to somebody else.
give it to somebody else.
It's supposed to have some effect on your brain, like remembering things.
That's when I was playing with that mercury and that's what you do.
Yeah,
I can remember a long time ago holding it in my mouth while I was doing something.
Oh, soccer. Yeah.
Come back to a competition, my hands are just coated with lead. Yeah, you have to wash your hands in cold water. You have the special soap that gets the lead off of your.
Why cold?
Because if you do hot, it opens your pores out and lets the lead get in there.
Oh,
So I always wash my hands religiously as I'm heading out of the range or something. A lot of people don't do that.
I've gone to very thin solder, so there's not much surface area.
Oh, that's better.
Which of the following is a danger from tin lead solder? Okay, so we talked about climbing towers. Make sure that any power is locked out. That you have at least one ground crew with a phone that can dial 911. Have locks in place on crank up towers. Have you climbed the crank up? I'd be a little leery about those.
Well, that doesn't bother me, it's just that.
Although, why do you have to climb it? Why don't you just let it
Crank
down?
it down.
You still gotta climb,
Why?
cause it'll only come down to like 15 or 20 feet.
Oh, well, that's not much of a climb, though.
I know, but you
I
still.
mean, you
gotta-
could get there on a tall ladder.
Extremely hard to climb a crank up tower when it's down,
Really?
cause you don't have hardly any room, you got 3 sections of tower.
Yeah.
And you only have about that much room to get a foot in. You can't put 2 feet on them, without.
Well, what Clyde does is once he's all the way down, he just turns it sideways.
Yeah.
That's your rope is partly what the ropes for.
All climbers have to have proper training or certification. And 100% tie off means that at least one lanyard is attached to the tower at all times. One tower leg above the climber's head. And one of the things talked about that being like a bungee cord lanyard. Is that so when you fall, it's not a jerk? So it just lets you hang there, and it's but it's above your head, so you don't go upside down. Because if you put it on your belt, you could.
And you put it on the top of your harness, not down on your belt.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to hook that up and then just sort of jump off just to see how.
Yeah. I wear mine when I go up on the roof and tether myself, so
I wear mine when I'm hunting.
I can't get to the edge that way. So
Yeah,
I have
so
eye bolts at places where I tie the,
On your roof.
yeah, I got a guy my mast to something.
Is your mask on the roof?
Well, it's adjacent, it's fastened to the house and it goes up.
Okay. Not on the tower.
Not a tower, just a telescoping fiberglass 35-foot mast.
Oh. I wouldn't like
When
to,
I hunt, I bolt safety harness, so we can't do the.
Well, you do it around the edges, so even if it leaks, it doesn't matter.
Oh, and Tracy.
Fill it full of the tar stuff and seal it well. Okay, don't use soldered connections for basically lightning grounds. Make sure that you ground all the legs of the tower. Lightning arresters should be on all your feed lines, outside the shack or the house. Some things say you do it at the entrance panel. I actually prefer putting it at ground rod. Actually, I mount mine. You can get these the brackets from DX Engineering, where you can actually mount the lightning arresters on it and tie it to ground, and it's on I've got a hole in concrete that the mast is actually attached to. And that's part of my ground thing, so I can ground them all there before they go into the shack.
Is your ground rod, you put your ground rod in it on the pad or beside the pad into the soil?
I have a ground rod that goes from my service panel around the house with one every 8 or 10 feet and around to the chain link fence. And all that's grounded, and then where that mast is, that's tied with flat copper strap into the ground rod.
And your ground rod is in the soil, not going through the pad into the mast.
Right. Right. No, I don't have an oofer ground. Yeah. You familiar with oofer? Yeah, an oofer ground. I don't know if they do them around here, but a lot of times they'll embed steel in the pad and bring a connection out.
Watching beam on the camera?
Yeah,
Is that
if you move the
round?
camera, though, I've got to go.
Oh, I moved it back.
Oh, yeah, that's.
It's called an oofer ground, I guess. Oofer invented it.
So she did not drink her whole bottle and she did not eat any breakfast.
Okay, talk wire sizes, 20 and 50.
Try to feed her again or give her snacks or something.
Sure.
Like soon before.
Use
probably
GFCIs when they didn't really say when, but essentially,
As soon as you can.
as I recall, the National Electric Code
Heading off to work.
says you have to use them in a wet environment.
Don't want to go.
Huh?
I don't
Where
want
there's
to
water.
go. I told Carly she.
For 20 volt AC, you need
She wants to get ready and stuff together for tonight.
Okay.
I said, that's
to
fine.
connect wires, obviously, to circuit breakers or fuses,
But
and have interlocks on.
Hey, Bob, you heard my earlier comment that ground
should not be the water pipes because of the electrolysis damage to them. Of course,
Alright. Well, have a good
modern
day.
pipes are plastic, but I have copper pipes that are buried and I had electrolysis problems. I wasn't using that as a ground, but had the electrolysis problem anyway.
Oh,
Yeah.
and I just changed her diaper.
Okay.
She has a.
Although they tend to copper plate the ground rods that you buy.
She has a rash,
Okay.
so make sure. to
No.
put a lot of- and-
Thin copper plating.
Put anything on it.
Okay.
How long have they been doing that?
Huh?
How long have they copper plating?
Quite a while. I don't have, all the ones I've bought over the
Yeah,
last 5 or 10 years have been,
20 years ago, I was doing satellite system installation, so doing the dish and DirecTV network installations. And at that time, the dish companies, the satellite companies only required a 4-foot ground rod. And the 4-foot ground rods that I have, I've still got a couple of them left. I cut one in half the other day to make a spike for hamstick mount into the ground. And they're copper all the way through.
really?
Yeah, but they're only 4 feet.
Yeah.
So they were
That's
copper.
worth something today.
If it was an 8-foot, when you have to mortgage your house to buy.
Right.
Yeah, I noticed about 3 or 4 years ago, 8-foot copper ground rods were like $55. Right now, you can get them for about 20.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
All copper?
That's why I was asking.
No, I don't think
No,
they're,
I
no.
was thinking, Phil's thinking, yeah, that's not solid.
That's not so.
Yeah.
Besides, it's kind of hard to drive a
One of these days.
It's solid
copper one, but not around here,
and put
but in other
like a
places.
couple of them up in there.
Because around here, I can push my ground rod 3-4 feet before I have to use a hammer.
Stuff to put the stuff Coral makes me at school on.
Oh, yeah.
Just a couple like that?
Yeah, like in there somewhere, we don't even have anything in there.
Water jet.
No.
They're like up there above the leaf bed.
I got a
up there.
question.
I just
That's
need to
it.
buy a board. I've got plenty of shelf brackets. I got,
In the.
I need 3 of them. You wanna do like 1, 2, and
Oh,
I can put this stuff on them,
because
this.
I just have to get so those are 4 feet, 4, 8. So I just have 2 8-footers.
They showed
Start putting the stuff she makes me.
this picture here.
Well, the perimeter ground.
Yeah, the perimeter grounds.
Right.
Yeah, I remember that. It's,
Yeah.
It's not.
I had trouble with that because my tower and